Okay, I've started the recording. This is the Pod Management and VOLTHA FCAPS Brigade call for November 18th of 2019. This meeting is recorded and the recording will be published to our YouTube channel. So please only say things that are appropriate for a public meeting. With that said, let's get started. Let me share the agenda. There we go. People should be looking at the agenda now. So topics for today, we're going to start out with status reports like usual, and then we're going to talk about a few Jenkins issues and also our approach to logging. So with that, let's get started with the reviews. Let me see who all we have. I believe Ashwarya is away for a few weeks. Um, I think she said Nagashiten, you'd be filling in for her.
Yeah, hi. So I have picked up one of the ticket, which is 2150. Sorry, it's 890, and which is actually dependent on the ticket 2150, which is related to the OpenVolt agent changes. So once after this is done, I can pick it up the changes with respect to the OpenVolt adapter changes. So meanwhile, I have tested the current thing with the BAL 3.2 and building up the setup so that I can test it end to end with that.
Yeah, and we expect 2150 to come in this week.
Okay.
I think that's
Uh,
what Ashwarya told me. I was just confirming if you had any expectation on that.
yeah, I actually pinged Jason Hung and got the review which he has raised. But there were no significant changes in that, and Girish has commented saying like, "Is this the final changes?" And no, it's not actually even merged with this thing. There's only just a new line changes were removed with that. So I can follow up with Jason Hung again once he is back in online.
Okay, great. Yeah, just if you could follow up and let us know the timing on how that's coming together, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thanks a lot on that. Okay, let me see who is next. Oh, so Ashwarya did give us a document. I will make a note. I haven't shared the document yet, but I will make a note to find that document and make sure it is shared to the group. I'll make that an action item for this week. And I
Okay.
believe she's also shared the document with you, Nagashitan.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
great,
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So
So,
let's go ahead.
sorry. Just I went through the document actually. Yeah. That's it.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll get it. I'll get it shared with the rest of the people. I'll probably put it up on the a link up on the mailing list so that everyone else can see it and comment on it.
Sure.
Um,
Thank you.
so next up would be Devmalia. I believe Devmalia is on vacation for the next week. Devmalia has been working on the event filtering mechanism. I think there are a couple patches outstanding for us to look at. Um, we have been having some architectural discussions about filtering and logging and such. Maybe we'll touch on those later, but we may want to wait until Devmalia is back before going deep into anything that pertains to the event filtering mechanism. Let's see. Next up would be Delete.
Yeah. Um, I commit I guess worked last week on a Jira, which is a get device list. Pretty much that's the one which I was working, and then was able to have the testing done and review, and was able to commit that last week. Apart from that, I was starting to get onto the code review on a couple of other changes, which Dinesh is working on, as well as Maddie is another engineer who is also working on. So, I guess both of them are at least one of them have one in the Maddie changes has maybe like 4 Jira in one of the in the diff. So it's kind of pretty nasty to look at that, and maybe we will have some kind of another meeting with her to resolve how to break this down, or have the the changes, have like a discussion with her, like a code review with more functional information. And that's the plan. And so the plan up for the week is pretty much try to get that thing rolling, and make sure that all the comments are addressed.
Okay, yeah, great. I appreciate you doing those code reviews, because that's often been a thing we've had trouble with throughout the Volta project, is getting lots of people available to do code reviews in a timely manner, because of course, if code isn't reviewed, then it doesn't get merged and people have to keep rebasing and such. So it's we really do appreciate that effort. And after we go through the status reports, maybe we'll talk a little bit more in detail about code review procedures. But yeah, thanks for looking into that. So your plan for the week is to continue reviewing that patch, and then if that gets done, to grab the next issue on the test work, I assume.
Yes, you're right. Another part would be like, how do we map the list of test cases to what we really test? So we need to map them out somehow, maybe a simple Excel or whatever, or maybe at the end of the document that these are all tested, kind of check marking, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
And
and
then
then
also, what output you plan to generate, I think would be handy to keep in mind. If there's some output that's easily parsable and reportable, there are some standard tools we use together with Robot Framework, I think, that generates specific output, but maybe for your application you'll have an output in mind that we can supply.
correct, you're right. You're right. Yeah. We should definitely try to generate some kind of a meaningful output. Right now, I don't think we are doing it. Um, so maybe we should look into that part. This is more like a test application which will test our API. Like say, since we are like a small group, and we are hand holding the application as well as the API, we kind of have a very deep knowledge about what we are testing, and what log comes out, and we kind of have a very good understanding. But going further, right, if somebody else is testing, I think they will not have any like deep knowledge about this the software code. So we need to make some kind of a the results to be displayed in a better fashion.
Yeah, that sounds great. So yeah, keep that in mind, how the reporting will work. And if you have a proposal, we can discuss that at some point, or
Yeah,
just go ahead
definitely.
with something and we can evaluate the result too.
Yeah, makes sense. Like it's more like the core functionality is done. It's more like a, like how do you say, beautification. Yeah.
Right, sure. So if you have questions during the week, let me know, or you can create a topic on the mailing list, and we can have the group brainstorm on approaches to that.
Sure, I will.
Anything more, Dilip?
Um, in the same context, like say, like how do we report, like what we test, maybe like not in the Jira, but maybe in the Gerrit, right? We should have some kind of a thing like I tested this, like maybe a simple one like test case and test output, something like that, which one, it gives some kind of a understanding for the reviewer to say, what was addressed, right? That's kind of a bigger picture, right? I mean, nothing to do with one particular Jira as such, but it's more like the approach, what are the needed things which had to be done by an engineer, including me too, right? I'm putting myself into this thing. So that's one thing, maybe we should go over the requirements, like they should do this and then they should report that in the Gerrit. And then another thing was, the bigger topic would be like the logging, right? We should have some kind of a log levels like debug, error, warning, like something like that, which, you pointed to me, in our chat. That's another thing. Maybe at the end of the meeting, we can go over that as well.
Yeah, I've got those on the agenda here to talk about the code review procedures, how Jenkins does our automatic testing in Gerrit, and developer testing expectations, and then we could have a short discussion on logging as well. So yeah, let's go through all of the status reports, and then we'll come back to those 3 topics.
Okay, sure.
So thanks a lot, Dilip. Next would be Dinesh.
Yeah, I checked in the API changes last week, and then after that I was looking at another Jira, that is Seba 880, to create various targets in the makefile which we were not doing. So I added that code and sent a Gerrit. And David helped me with one of the issue in the Docker files. Thanks, David. That was really helpful. And now I will look at the Go mod thing, how to add that Go, make it Go module for our container. And I think after I do that, I'll have to come back to this Gerrit, because this target Gerrit needs Go mod to be implemented first. So that's the plan.
Yeah, that sounds good. So you did have a patch here on this one that was ready to check in as is on Seba 880.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're probably waiting for let me see. Yeah, I think Divya was going to come and add another set of eyes and another +1 on that. And as soon as we get one more +1, then we can merge that one.
Yeah. And I will also review another Gerrits.
Okay, great. Yeah, if we could just keep the review process going, that's great. I appreciate all the work everyone is doing on that. Anything more, Dinesh? It sounds like things are coming along well with the makefile and such.
Yeah. And in those targets, I'm not making a test target yet, and that's kind of another work needs to be planned, how to add unit test cases for the importer. So that's I'm not very clear about that, so I'll have to work on that. How do we do that?
Yeah, I can share some of the approaches and some of the examples we have that we've done in the other Golang components. So Golang does include a unit testing library that is fairly standard and common. And I think once I share some examples of people using that library and some of the other components, it'd become relatively obvious what is expected to be done there, what kinds of unit tests. So yeah, I will get those examples out. Yeah, let me make sure I have a note. Yeah, because right now I don't think the Redfish importer has unit testing yet, but that should be straightforward for you to add.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm making myself a note to provide you some examples of what we do in the other projects. So thank you, Dinesh. Anything more?
No, that's
Uh,
it.
Next up would be Divya. Yeah, we have Divya here today.
Yeah, hi Scott.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good
Yeah,
morning.
yeah. So I was working on VOL 1731 that is related to probes for VOLTHA API server. So that thing is got merged to the master now. So from last Friday, I started looking on this logging part, and you initiated the talk on Slack server, Slack channel also. So I am going through the discussion, and probably I'll come up with the task needs to be done for this implementation in 1 or 2 days. So I'll send out a mail to you and everybody in the community uh, for my approach. So you review it, then I'll start the implementation, actual implementation. That is what my plan is. Hello?
Whoops, sorry, I was talking with mute on. Yeah, so that sounds good. I'll look forward to your email later in the week. I did want to ask the discussion we had in Slack, has that relatively
Yeah.
made sense to you? I know it became kind of a long discussion with many different
Yes.
ideas. The way we were kind of, and it's good we have David here with us as well, but the way we were kind of leaning in that discussion was toward the etcd approach, which would be someone sets the various log levels in etcd, and then each component would periodically either pull or using an etcd watcher or something like that, watch for those log levels to change and dynamically update itself appropriately. Um, that's not the way we've implemented any other components yet, so that would be kind of a new thing. But I would ask that you keep that approach in mind, as that seems to be what most of the people who had the discussion were kind of leaning toward, is what we thought was the right way to go with it. Any words from
Yeah.
David?
And
Well, I think that makes sense.
Okay, good. And anything
okay.
from you, Divya?
Yeah, I mean, what about the current implementation? We are planning to change those implementation, or it's only the changes right now to be done in adapters only, or how it is going to be means?
I would say that you would start with the adapters, get the adapters implemented the new way, and then assuming that works out and assuming everyone is happy with that approach, and do a demo on it and such, and then go and start converting the other modules over as well, the other components. Open to David's thoughts on that as well. It seems like
No,
arriving at a consistent approach would be good.
yeah, I agree. I think we'll eventually get to them all, but getting it done with an adapter and making sure it all works, find out the oddities that we didn't expect. Perfect.
Okay. And I saw that there was a talk going on, means the discussion was going on regarding the old CTL and K8S, means that was means I have not gone through entire discussion means, but I seen that. So K8S approach was also means you guys were talking about K8S approach also.
About which approach? I wasn't understanding. I couldn't understand what approach you were naming.
So there was a discussion going on Friday, right? About K8S. Mm, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I
Okay,
guess I'm
I'll
not
come up.
I'm not quite remembering
Yeah,
that, but
yeah. Even I don't remember that much. Maybe I'll ping you on that.
Sure, yeah, ping me or ping the Slack channel, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think after the weekend we probably forgot everything that happened in that long Friday ex discussion exchanges we had. So yeah, people's memories may be a bit lapsed, mine included.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Scott. I'll send out a mail in 1 or 2 days.
Okay, great. Yeah, and thank you for looking into that. I think there's great opportunity to come up with the final perfect solution for logging here.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Anything more, Divya?
Right now, no.
Next up then would be Ganesh.
Yeah, Scott, yeah, first thing, Omkar is not in the call. He was not well for a couple of days. So he will probably communicate on email. About my status, last week I have pushed the draft review, and this week I'm going to test with the different APIs, the integration part of importer and exporter, device management and Kafka exporter. So together I'm testing. So if I could see those parameters, what we have retrieved as part of 599 Jira, those parameters I'm trying to get on the Prometheus, and then once I validate these things, so maybe with some little more changes, I'll push as a final code review. And yeah, this week I'm targeting to get this testing done for 599.
Okay, great. So you've got all the information you need from Dinesh at this time on the importer.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to integrate. Yeah, this morning, even I got a couple of mails from Dinesh. Yeah, Dinesh, as we spoke, I understand this GitHub link. There's a lot of APIs, but I wanted to, maybe I'll communicate with Dinesh once again on Slack. So there's a little thing I'm looking for, that is, if I want to customize some of the APIs. Let's say I have SFP connected on different ports, and maybe different services I want to invoke on the API. So those kind of APIs I want to customize instead of getting the fixed number of APIs. So I have tried. Yeah.
Ganesh, can you
Yes.
clarify when you say API means from the Redfish?
Yes, Redfish. Yes.
Yeah, so you want more APIs than currently what standard Redfish provides?
Exactly. So, do we have a provision to customize? Let's say I say that on chassis port number 1 there's a thermal, right? So, I might have a little different structure, or maybe on different, not for chassis for sure, but let's say for some, Ethernet stuff, or my SFP is connected on different ports. We have multiple ports and multiple SFPs on Ethernet switches. So in that scenario, currently I did not get a way to configure the device management module to hit that API. So I
No,
can do
so
that manually. Yeah.
no, currently that some of the information regarding those importer is not collecting. So Madis Gerrit will collect all the information. Then you don't need customized API.
Okay. So in last discussion, you were saying something that is under review.
Yeah.
So what was that part of?
So in that Gerrit, we are collecting all the information Redfish can provide. So I think you should get whatever you need.
Okay, you mean if I get a latest device management, I will have this,
No,
is it?
no, that Gerrit is not yet checked in. It will be checked in soon.
Okay, so what is that? What is the name of that? May I know?
The Gerrit?
Yeah, what is the name of that component which is there, which is coming maybe?
No, in that Gerrit, we are collecting all the information. Earlier, we were collecting system, chassis, and Ethernet switch, I think. So,
Okay, yes.
with this, we will collect all the information from the redfish.
Okay, maybe yeah, I'm talking about that only. Yes.
Yeah.
So Dinesh, that's this patch that I just put up on screen, this 15754 by Maddie. That's the one you're speaking of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so as soon as this one is merged, this one has some changes to the data collector in here. As soon as it's merged, I think you're going to get that additional stuff that Dinesh is talking about, and we're working on reviewing that now and getting that one review comments in so we can get it merged.
Okay, got it. Yes, got it. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Dinesh. Maybe this will help. For Scott, there is no blocker as such. I have to just validate the things. I have to test on Prometheus, and once I test it, I can probably push a final review for 599 Jira.
Okay, great. And then maybe once we get the final review and such in, we could look toward doing a demo sometime in the future on one of the Volta calls.
Yeah.
You know, like a full end-to-end show the stats showing up in Prometheus sort of thing. I think it'd be good to show that to the larger community once we're ready.
Yes, sure, Scott. We will do that. Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll talk on scheduling that after these reviews and after you've finished the integration testing.
Perfect. Yeah. So maybe next week, in the next call, we can probably work out with the date and we'll decide. Yeah.
Yeah. When it's time, we'll coordinate with Julie and we'll get a date for it. But yeah, let's make sure we've got everything all integrated and ready to go. So that sounds good.
Yes.
Thank you, Ganesh.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll get in touch with Onkar once he's feeling better. Was there anything
Yes.
else,
Yes.
Ganesh?
No, that's all, Scott. Thanks, and yeah, we'll talk next week. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, and I think next up would be Rohan.
Yeah, hi Scott. So last Friday, I've actually submitted a patch set for that 2062, which was that Kubernetes proofs for OpenVNU adapters. So I'm actually waiting for that, some review comments on that. I've actually pinged you also today for review of that.
Okay, yeah, I'll get myself and I'll find someone else as well to help with reviewing that and get it reviewed so we can get it merged.
Yeah.
Once that's done, what's the next issue that you're planning on working on?
Yeah, actually, I was going through this discussion also, which was going regarding logging. So, like, I'm in sync up with Divya also for that. So maybe I'll look into something related to logging only.
Okay, yeah, if you and Divya could coordinate on that, does that sound good to Divya? You guys could work together on logging a bit.
Yeah, sure, Scott.
Yeah, coordinate and yeah, come up with a plan and let me know. And we could definitely use all the help we can get on logging there, I think.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Yeah, Scott, sure.
Anything else, Rohan?
No, as such, no.
Okay, going back to the agenda, we wanted to talk about code review a little bit. So let me just pull up a patch. I'll see if I'll log in. Let me just find one of mine that's been merged. I guess it's been a while since I had one merged. Well, let me, I'll just grab this one of Garish's that's been merged. So the code review process, Everyone is kind of expected to participate in code review because to get our work merged, we need it reviewed. So it's kind of a community effort. If you review others' patches, they will be kind and review your patches as well. So anything, I do notice we have several people on the call who have been active reviewing, and that's great. We'd like to encourage that. Generally, it takes two 2+1s in order to consider a patch eligible get its final review and get merged. So you can see, for example, in this patch of Girish's, I have been active reviewing it, and in this case, David was active reviewing it. And then once we got 2+1s and all of our comments were addressed, then I came along +2'd it and merged it. So I guess that's well. One thing is, don't feel shy asking questions as you're reviewing something. If something is not clear, ask for clarification, or if you spot an error in someone's code, don't hesitate to point that out. I guess that would be some general guidelines just to make sure that we're all submitting quality code. This is, a peer review process, so we try to help each other out with constructive criticism. Let's see, David, are you still on? David, anything more you can think to add about code review practices?
Just as you do it, make sure they've added unit tests too. I mean, that's one way we can help ensure people are doing unit tests. If they've modified code, they likely need to modify a unit test. Maybe, maybe not. And the other thing is, if you get a -1 on review, it's not personal. It's just, that's a way for reviewers to mark that, hey, I have an issue I'd like resolved before we move forward. So don't be shy about adding, I'm sorry, -1. Yeah, did I say -1? Don't be shy about adding -1s when you review other people's code, and don't worry about it if you get them. It's just a way to mark it so that everybody knows it needs some attention. So just go that way. And again, just when you go over the code, go over it with a critical eye, right? That's part of this. We all get better when we all kind of help each other, and that's what that's all about.
Yeah, thanks, David. Does anyone in the group have any questions about code review? Anything you'd like additionally made clear that either David or I can answer your questions on? Well, if not, go ahead.
On the same note, right? Like maybe in the Gerrit, maybe after they do the, yes, they do the unit testing, but wouldn't it be good to have some kind of a cut and paste of what was the output of the test they have done? It's kind of much easier to have a confidence that yes, these were tested.
Yeah, let me go into that next, since we do have automated testing here. So I will. So the automated testing, it isn't set up fully across the board. Some of the newer repos, like the Redfish importer, we may need to add more. But here, I think I'm in VOLTHA lib go, and I should be able to click on a few things and show you guys how the automated Jenkins testing works, and where you can find logs of unit tests and such. Were there any other comments before I move on to talk about the automatic testing? Okay, so I'll just look inside of here. So whenever you submit a patch, Jenkins is going to run some tests automatically. These tests, each repository is set up a little bit different in what it can test. Some of them are Python, so they have Python-based tests. Other ones are Golang, and they'll have Golang tests. And even within a particular language, some of the repositories may have lint and SCA tests set up, where others may just have unit tests. So some of the things that will happen is there'll be a licensing test. So if we look in the licensing test, you can click that through. Yeah, we're logged in. And on any of these, you can you can view the output. So if I go into console output, you can see what the test did. So it ran, it really didn't find anything in here. It just kind of ran through and succeeded. So the licensing test in particular will look to make sure that the license headers are all filled out on the various files. So if we look at a file, up at the very top of it, there's a license. So the license test will automatically check to see that these license blocks are there. If you do not have a license block, it would Jenkins would leave a -1. So you can see on this patch, everything that was done was needed, so Jenkins gave it a +1. But Jenkins found a problem, it would automatically give it a -1. So the other tests that it ran, it also ran a tag collision test. That has to do with version files. A lot of our repositories have version files in them with the restriction that you could not release the same version twice. So if you release a version, say 2.2.1, you cannot merge while the version is 2.2.1 again. You have to bump it to something new. For example, you go 2.1.2 or 2.2.2-dev, put it into development. As long as it's in development, you can continue to push changes to it. I don't know that we have this tag collision set up on the Redfish importer yet. I'd have to look into that. It's possible we don't have version files in the Redfish importer yet. I have to take a look. If we don't have that set up, that may be another issue I'll create and send your way.
I think it is there.
Okay, you think? Okay, good. So the Redfish importer does have that. That's great. So the one you probably don't have is unit testing.
Yeah.
If we go into unit tests, again, this is the VOLTHA libgo repository, one that I know does have tests in it already. But we can see that it has run unit tests automatically, and it managed to find all of the Golang tests, and it ran them, and they passed. And it as a byproduct, it generates coverage values that can tell us how much a particular module was covered by unit tests, so we can see this adapter IF module was covered 4%, and we can see that all of the tests that were in that particular directory passed. Now you see some logging stuff got interspersed with the output. That's kind of unfortunate because it clutters it up, so you might have to scroll past to see all the test results. But you can see for each directory, it's going in here and running the unit tests automatically and generating pass or fail, as well as these coverage numbers. So here's something where we had 100% coverage in a directory. And then when we get down to the bottom, I don't see anything that actually says the whole thing passed, but it obviously did pass, or it would have complained down here and it would have -1 the patch. So, oh, there it is, finish success. So yeah, it did finish all of the unit tests successfully, and it did a +1. We should be able to look at this and see it has generated some reports. So it's got a test result. What does that show? That shows for various, what is this, directories? Yeah, this is a summary of all the test cases that passed. There should also be a Cobertura coverage report. Yeah, so here you can see the coverage in various modules. So all of this information is there. There's even trend information up here that shows how things have been progressing across patches. So once we have the unit testing in place, and once we have the makefile set up for it, we sort of get a lot of this collection and reporting stuff for free, and that's handy. So to get back to Divya's question, how do you know that someone did that their testing did pass? If it did not pass, then Jenkins would have -1 the patch, and the patch would be unmergeable until that is fixed. Do we have any questions on the various how to interact with these Garrett automatically run jobs that happen? The other thing I should mention is occasionally you'll get a false negative. Your test will fail because there was some resource issue when Jenkins went to run it. Maybe it picked a machine to run your test on that wasn't ready, or that it was unclean or something, and your test failed, even though you're relatively certain your patch is correct. If you have that kind of a problem, you can just type reply and then enter a comment that says recheck, and then hit post, and Jenkins will rerun all of the tests for that particular patch. And then I suppose the final thing to note on this is that Jenkins will only run these tests on patches that are not drafts. If you have created a draft patch, it will ignore it and will not test it. So once you're ready to start testing, take your patch from draft to public.
Is there a way to force Jenkins to run it on a draft?
That would be a question we'd have to ask Zach. Is possible if you left a recheck comment, it would do it? I don't know. But that would be kind of handy to know. I think it may also be the case that sometimes if you go from draft to public and then back to draft, it'll keep continuing to run tests. But I don't know that I would guarantee that. Often when I want a patch set to be available to some people and to be tested, but I don't want someone to hit it with reviews and merge it before I'm done, I will put work in progress. I'll just put WIP up here in the commit message. So let me my changes. So yeah, like here's one I put work in progress diagnostics. That way, even though this one's actually a draft, but here's work in public reconcile device agent something. Yeah, so I put WIP there. So even though this is a public patch, the people who are reviewing this know they can look at it, but their review probably isn't final, and they know not to actually +2 and merge it because I put that WIP. So that is handy to do to make sure that someone doesn't pull the trigger and actually merge your patch before you're ready if you've left it public. Let's see, this is VOLTHA Go. Are there any more? Where's the Jenkins? Yeah, so here's an example of where something didn't work out right. So this generated an unstable. So there's actually on this particular patch, we have a long-running end-to-end test, and it was unstable. So Jenkins -1 the patch. You can see what that looks like. We have some other checks in this one. There are linting tests, and linting tests should be just like the unit tests in that you can go through the output. And if it would have found linting problems, it would have complained about them in here. So it ran a Dockerfile lint check. It was okay. It ran a go mod lint check. It was okay. And then I'm assuming it ran the makefile lint check, and that turned out okay as well. So all of this automation, our QA department, as well as Zach, have worked hard to set stuff like this up so that we can take advantage of it and reduce the amount of workload that we have to do to manually run these kinds of things, and have them automated for us, and have that information available to the reviewer so the reviewer can look at these reports and take these into account. But it is all predicated on people actually writing the unit tests. If there are no unit tests, then there's not much information to collect. So as David said, one of the things as a reviewer you should look for, if someone has written code, have they also written a unit test for that code? And then if they have, you'll see the results. Do we have any question about these Garrett automatically run jobs? or any questions about testing in general. Okay, the last thing we wanted to briefly touch on today was logging. Let's see, I believe I did. I may have already lost it here. We do have a logging module in the VOLTHA libgo library that is available if people would like to use it. It is based on a Golang logger called Zap. It does have various levels for debug, info, warning, error, panic, fatal. And it has various functions to exercise all of that, as well as sort of an ability somewhere in here, package. Oops. Yeah, so here's comments. Package log provides structured logger. Yeah, so it gives you package level logging, so individual packages can register themselves and can have individual log levels. You can change log levels at runtime. You can have a default logger for if you don't have package level loggers. So this is a relatively full-featured logging package,
How do you
appropriate. Go ahead.
how do you change dynamically the log level?
So that is exactly the work that Divya is going to be working on, is dynamic log levels. So we do, with some of the VOLTHA services, we have a dynamic way of doing that through API. The VOLTHA services have a gRPC server, and there's a gRPC API called update log level, and you pass
Okay.
it in a package name and a log level. Since you have a gRPC API for the Redfish importer, you could easily do that same thing there if you wanted to implement an API for update log level and an
Yeah,
API for
because
get level log level.
currently I have integrated logs RS because we wanted to be independent of VOLTHA.
Sure. And I think that may be a reasonable choice. I don't know that we want to insist that everyone use this particular VOLTHA logger. I'm kind of showing it here as something that we do have that is maintained by ONF and the community in case you want to use it. But at the same time, if you have a relatively standard Golang logger that you're happy with and that you've already embraced, I don't know that there's a pressing need for you to change to it at this time.
I thought this
Yeah,
was
but
a wrapper around LogRS anyway, wasn't it?
This is a wrapper around Zap.
Oh, it's around Zap? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, we didn't write this whole logger. We just wrapped something else. I couldn't tell you the differences between Zap and LogRS and why we picked this one and not the other. It may just come down to the personal preference of whoever wrote this library.
So the question is, if the importer uses a different mechanism to dynamically update its logging. So if it uses gRPC and VOLTHA is going to be moving away from gRPC towards the etcd approach, then anything you write today against the gRPC potentially for the importer might have to change later if the importer wants to continue kind of with the same process that VOLTHA does. If the importer doesn't use the same process as VOLTHA, then that means an operator has to have two mechanisms, one to modify VOLTHA, its log level, and one to modify the importer log level. So I think there's also questions, do we see the importer being integrated in with things like VoltCuttle, or do we see this as something just completely separate from the VOLTHA stack?
I think so.
You think which one of those that David listed, integrated or separate?
I think it is separate, independent of VOLTHA.
Yeah, that has been my impression. I don't think we have Taskin on the call today, but previously what Taskin has communicated is a desire to keep this as independent functionality that is not dependent upon VOLTHA. So if we went in a direction where we required etcd in order to set log levels, that might be too great a dependency, unless we could also make the case that the redfish importer should depend on etcd. I do think there's value in consistency across components, but it does also come down to whether those components have outside uses beyond the VOLTHA use case. And
But
Okay.
David mentioned alternative to gRPC. What is that?
yeah, I think what David meant was using etcd. So that is what the
using
discussion we've
etcd.
had.
Okay.
So the idea there is, and this is what Divya is going to be looking into, is that etcd is a key value store. So it stores key names and their values, and then every application can talk with etcd and retrieve key values from it. So the approach would be that you write key values via the etcd client into etcd, and then the various components pull that information as necessary. So you wouldn't have
So
to make
it's
an API call directly into a component. You kind of go through this key value store.
also for all APIs also go through etcd.
No. So this is kind of the first thing that we would be going. Well, I guess is maybe the second thing that we would be going through etcd. The first thing we did was tech profiles.
Yeah.
And tech profiles are written to etcd, and then components read them from etcd. Logging would be the second. And then we may make the case that more and more stuff should be following this pattern. But we kind of want to see how the logging turns out first. David, you're
So
kind
are
of
we
the,
moving?
go ahead.
So are we moving away from gRPC?
I would say that's a decision that hasn't been made yet, but David, I know David has been kind of the architect of pushing that approach, so David can make
Yeah,
the case.
I think it's trying to use the right tool for the right job, and in some cases, gRPC may absolutely be the right tool, and in those cases, we'll use gRPC. Things like config or some updates where they're really trying to deal with a persistent state across components, it may be gRPC isn't the right approach there, and then we'll look at alternatives like etcd. So with
Okay.
config, we're trying to have a persistent, consistent state across all these components. And that
Yeah.
seems to me to fit in with etcd.
Yes. So it depends.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So do we have any other questions on logging?
Is the fatal log level is available to use as it actually truncates the process if we use the fatal log level, right?
Yeah, so fatal, if you throw something with a fatal log level, it will, I believe it'll cause, well, I thought it caused a panic, but it looks like there's also a panic log level. Yeah, it would cause the process to exit. So a recoverable error, you should be throwing the error log level, an error that you want reported in the logs, but maybe you've got a main loop that will continue processing. Panic and fatal, look into throwing those when you've reached more of a situation where the process cannot continue, and you either want it to exit or to otherwise signify that something is very wrong.
Okay, so okay, yeah.
Well, we're pretty close to the top of the hour. Any final questions on any issues or anything you would like to see discussed next week? We could certainly deep dive these topics more if people would like more in depth on them.
Let me take a look. I guess new to this whole Etsy and comparable. We'll talk later next week, as you said.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I welcome any impressions you have, and everyone feel free to suggest alternatives as we go through some of these implementations. We very much want to keep the door open to suggestions, and we are a community community effort. So everyone's input is welcome. With that, I think we will wrap up the meeting for today. I'll be in contact with people through Slack during the week, and we'll talk to everyone again on Monday.
Thanks.
Thanks everyone, and have a good work week.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Bye.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye bye.
Have a good day. Bye.